Coming to you from sunny California and the Great White North. Get ready. We are breaking down the obstacles on the Armchair Ninja Podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Armchair Ninja Podcast. It is Thursday, November 3rd, 2016. My name is Rich, and joining me this week is Bijan. How you making out?
What up, man? I love the outfit. We have to talk about that first.
Oh, no. I subjected
yes.
everyone to that and didn't intend to bring it up.
No. For everybody that hasn't seen it yet, you guys have to go to the Ninja Podcast Instagram and see Rich's Halloween outfits. He has two of them, and oh boy, are they something to see.
Yeah, I started in one direction and took a sharp left turn.
Oh, yeah.
So I have fun every Halloween. Definitely love dressing up, and went very overboard this year, trying desperately to win because I've gotten second place a few times at work where it's a very serious competition, and this year I was determined to win. So
what were you?
Well, it was Captain Tornado was the original plan, and I didn't think there would be enough people that would get it, so I ended up going as the Queen of Hearts. So that was an interesting costume.
Beardless Rich. Makeup, all of it. It was something.
So if you didn't get scared enough on Halloween, you should check that out for sure. It was lots of fun.
Yeah, and definitely check out his... what's the name again? I was about to say Captain NBC, but that's not right, is it?
No, it's Captain Tornado.
Captain Tornado, that's the one. You guys have to see his Captain Tornado outfit as well. For fans of the show and of the SNL skit, it's quite amazing. It is very true to form, by the way. You pull it off really well. So if there's a Canadian Ninja Warrior, man, you have to pull that off.
Yeah, I'll save the mask for sure. We'll make some use of it. But yeah, it was fun. Halloween was great. How did you make out?
I was boring, man. I don't know. This year, I'm kind of just out of it. A lot of my friends wanted me to go to some parties and everything, and I was just the old man being like, I worked all week. I'm good. So I just handed out candy, stuff like that. I don't have any cool stories for you this year.
We were actually talking as we were out trick-or-treating that it must be nice to be somewhere warm to trick-or-treat, and you don't have to wear jackets over every costume. Like, it was just freezing. But yeah, Halloween was a big year for American Ninja Warrior because we had kids dressing up as ninjas, which they've done in the past, but it seems like we had a lot more this year. Or maybe just ANW Nation did such a good job of compiling them all. But we also get to see the ninjas themselves dressed up in costume. And I'm going to link all this in the show notes, but what did you think of it, Bijan? Starting with the kids.
Dude, they were dope. Like, we all know that there's a lot of children that are into the sport of American Ninja Warrior, but it really hits you hard when it comes to, like, the Halloween costumes and everything, just how many kids are super into this show. And not just that, just there are so many different fans of all these different athletes. I mean, first of all, I mean, the amount of little girls dressed as Jessie Graff this year is just absurd. It's awesome.
God.
But wow.
You knew that was coming, like, really. But I guess I didn't think it would be that many because it is crazy.
Oh, yeah, both the Wonder Woman outfit and the green outfit. So, if everybody's like, oh, well, they're just dressed as Wonder Woman or whatever. No, there's some girls that are specifically dressed as Jessie Graff. It's quite amazing and really awesome also that, she's inspiring all those girls and everything. But not just that. I mean, there's other kids. There's some kids dressed as Captain NBC, Jamie Ron. There's some kids dressed as Flip Rodriguez. But I think both of our favorites is the Neil Craver one, right?
Yeah, Neil Craver kid wins hands down. It is one of the best pictures I've ever seen. I loved it.
Yeah, and there's a whole lot more different kids just as all of our favorite athletes. So definitely check it out, guys. It's on ANW Nation, and I don't know. It was really cool to see, and it just gives a lot of perspective of just how big this show is and the sport is to a variety of audiences.
What was funny is I thought earlier as I was talking to my wife about it that most people that dress up for Halloween, even if you're dressing up as a famous person, you're dressing up as a character, right? You're dressing up as, the Terminator or, some other iconic character, one of the Ghostbusters. But in this case, they're actually dressing up as real people. That's kind of cool when you think about it, that, if you're one of these ninja athletes out there, there are little kids that idolize you to a point of wanting to be you for Halloween. Like, I love that.
Yeah, man, they're like the modern day or real life superheroes. It's really cool.
Yeah, and the real life superheroes themselves dressed up. We get to see Jesse Graff as a dragon and Drew Drechsel as Ash from Pokemon, and they had I can't even list them all. There were so many cool costumes, and they were really good too. They really went over the top, a lot of them, because I mean costumes are still kind of a part of the sport, right? You kind of expect it in some ways.
Oh yeah, my personal favorite is Grant McCartney dressed as a ninja, straight out of like the Ninja Warrior, like reels, that we see. And there's a picture of him surfing with one leg up in that ninja costume. It's quite amazing.
Yeah, so if you want to check those out, you can jump over to ANW Nation. We'll also link it in the show notes for you to check out. And so we're actually going to cover the big topic this time is the ANW2 final episodes. But one more quick note, and we'll of course go into some College Ninja Warrior as well. But it is worth mentioning right off the bat that ANW Casting has announced the deadline, and the application process is now underway for ANW9 next season.
Yeah, it came out of nowhere, but it sounds like the right timing. If I remember correctly, it's always in November. It's just like, where did this year go? It's like...
Okay, it wasn't just me. What the heck?
It's crazy because at first I was like, it's already casting. And then I was like, wait, it's already November. That's when they usually cast. So I don't know. This year's just been creeping up on us, man.
So we'll be linking in the show notes for the ANW casting, how you can go and apply. You need to have your video submission in place by January 2nd at midnight. And judging by the way the rest of the year is gone, that'll come up fast. So make sure you start getting your video together, getting everything you want to say down, and getting your training in.
Oh, yeah.
So, Bijan, what do you think? This year going to be your year?
We'll see. I'm in shape. So, really no excuses. It's just, that video, it's that's the crunch where I think a lot of people is that sometimes it's really hard to get that video done, but if you're really about it, you got to get it. You just got to make that jump.
Okay, so now we can get on to the main event here. ANW2, the final episodes. I was surprised. I didn't realize that Levi was going to get knocked out before he even got there.
Mm-hmm. So one topic that I want to go into, right, even before we start this whole discussion about the show is, first of all, I don't think it's necessarily spoilers because it's so much of the past, but do you know how he broke his wrist or hand?
No, I have no idea.
It was during the filming of a little show called Jump City, Seattle.
Oh,
now,
okay.
we bring this up a lot this show, and I feel like we actually should cover this next when we do have a giant break, because looking back, this show, Jump City, Seattle, it filmed in between the boot camp and the Sasuke, finals that we're covering right now. And this particular show has such a huge impact in the entire history and lore of American Ninja Warrior. People don't really give it much credit, just being like an offshoot free-running series, but the amount of, I guess, characters or athletes coming from Jump City, Seattle that played such a huge impact in becoming some of the top athletes in American Ninja Warrior is absolutely astounding. A good majority of your favorite ninjas all started in Jump City, Seattle. So I feel like it's going to be a really good thing to cover because not enough people know about it. And we can talk about the beginnings of some of our favorite ninjas, man.
Cool. Definitely something we can do when we find the time. I'm kind of wondering where we're going to get a gap here. We're going to have College Ninja Warrior, probably straight into Team Ninja Warrior. Maybe we'll have a little gap there.
I think that's when our gap's going to be between Team Ninja Warrior and American Ninja Warrior, because we have to remember, American Ninja Warrior doesn't air until the summer of 2017. Even though they're filming during the spring, it won't air till the summer.
That is true. Yeah.
And we can really cover like half the season in one go. I mean, it doesn't have to be like a prolonged thing. Okay, let's get back into the to this final thing. So, first of all, what's your overall vibe of Stage 1 in the course of Sasuke? Because for all the listeners, now that it's the finals of American Ninja Warrior 2, it's actually taking place at Sasuke. I forget what season it took place at, but you get a feel for how Sasuke was back then and everything. What was your overall feel for Stage 1?
It was good. I liked it. Some different obstacles. I thought the whole course was being different the way it was going. It started off with a bunch of new ones. They were even calling them new for that season too. I was surprised to see Jimmy Smith back. I didn't expect that. And I did a double take when they said Brian Orozco was the favorite, and then they explained how Levi was hurt. So that actually Adam LaPlante, instead of Rich King, which I thought was interesting, was the alternate.
It could come to many factors. I think Adam LaPlante maybe had a better time than Rich King. I'm not really sure how they decided it.
Yeah, it was either that or the fact that they were on the same team, maybe. I'm not sure.
Well, both teammates were, or both Rich King and Adam LaPlante were teammates.
Yeah. But Levi got to go and cheer them on, so that was nice of them at least to do that.
Yeah, I'm glad they at least had Levi there because he was such a huge presence, both to American and Japanese competitors or fans at that time. You know, he was a huge presence. Sorely missed, by the way.
Yeah. Anyway, get back to your original question here. I guess the course itself, stage 1, it was okay. It was different, I guess, some of the obstacles, but still had a very familiar feel, so there was nothing that surprising. The only thing that really kind of took me by surprise was when the giant swing, actually, the whole rig kind of moved when they jumped to the bar. I didn't see that coming.
Yeah. I think the one key to this particular stage is a rolling escargot, and for people that aren't familiar too much with the rolling escargot, I mean, how would you describe this thing? It's kind of like a spinning rolling log board, but you're kind of pressed against kind of like a wall, and you've got little pegs for both your arms and your feet, and you got to just hold yourself against this wall while it's spinning. And at this particular point in the time frame of Sasuke, this particular obstacle was incredibly difficult and took out a lot of competitors in the field.
Yeah, it's definitely a strange looking obstacle too. For some reason, they've got a giant snail on this thing, but we've seen this almost exactly the same obstacle in modern ANW, and I can't think of what it's called. It's almost like if you strap a lady to one of those boards and they're spinning her and they throw the knives at the thing. That's what it kind of looks like.
Yeah, that's a good description. Just like reversed, right?
Yeah, facing the board and just on like a rolling log type obstacle. That definitely looked to be one of the harder ones. It tripped up two of the competitors, or two of the American competitors. I don't know if it devastated the field otherwise, but
it was pretty rough on the Japanese competitors, if I remember correctly. I'm not saying all the Japanese competitors, but it was definitely a more daunting obstacle to that field.
Yeah, what actually surprised me the most about this is that they turned it over to the Japanese announcer for the play-by-play, that they weren't doing their own play-by-play.
I love Matt Eisman and whatever his co-host's name was, but the Japanese announcers are the best. Like, if anybody watches Ninja Warrior, like the Sasuke editions of Ninja Warrior on G4 or whatever however you watch it, they are just so amazing. They get so into it, and just their inflections and how much they yell and everything. It's just so fun. I love those guys so much.
I really like it too. I wish I could pay better attention to it, so I get a little distracted because I'm taking notes at the same time. If I wasn't doing that, I think I would enjoy it even more. But trying to read that, watch the competitor, and jot down some quick notes along the way makes it a little tricky. But their energy is infectious. You can definitely feel it.
Oh yeah, I guess that's the best description, is their energy, man, because they get like really quiet and they speak really low, like when it's very serious, and all of a sudden, wah! They get like super crazy animated, and something big happens. It's just so awesome.
I was laughing at some of the comments along the way about the competitors themselves, right? When they're describing, there's one way they're saying Brent Stephenson, that
massive, right?
How tall he is and stuff, like 5'8", his long legs.
I couldn't stop laughing when they're describing multiple times in this episode. They refer to Brent Stephenson as massive, and they and in the description of massive, it's because he's 5'8", and I'm just like, what?
That was fantastic.
I mean, it's very cultural relative, right? I mean, he is probably massive, maybe to the average Ninja Warrior or Sasuke competitor, but to an American audience, like 5'8" is very, very, I guess, average, if anything, right?
Yeah, it's even on the low end of average, but he's taller than me, to be clear. But still, that's still not a very tall person.
No.
You know, even a lot of the ninjas I find are on the shorter end, and he's not even considered tall for that lower average, what I would consider average anyway.
No, like Travis Furlonic, he's like really deceptively huge. He was 6'1". I'm like, oh, that's a bigger competitor. And Paul Casimir, he's always been considered quite large, but he's actually my size exactly. He's 5'11", 155. That's me. I'm 5'11" and 155 pounds, which kind of shocked me because Paul Casimir looks massive. I don't think I'm as muscular as that guy. But so that gives some relativity towards maybe the American perspective as compared to the Sasuke perspective. And I think that also has plays a huge part in these obstacles, you know? There was one point where a lot of the American competitors were just jumping over, skipping the little swing obstacle because they're like, hey, we can make this jump, you know? And I think the American competitors had a much easier time on that rolling escargot, maybe because they were larger.
It could be. Like I said, the most notable one was definitely the hazard swing where they just jumped over the swing to the other side. But yeah, I don't know. I liked it. I don't know if we'll go through every single run. Half of them got knocked out.
No point, yeah.
Yeah. Notable that both Evan Dollard and Patrick Cusick both got knocked out on the rolling escargot. And Patrick even said, I was surprised he even admits to this, that Evan saved me. If I climbed that rope, I wouldn't have gone to Japan. Like, do you not see the problem with that, Patrick?
Yeah, because he literally said he can make that climb. So,
anyway, Brent Stephenson stood out a lot this episode, I thought. Even though, you know, and David Campbell, which I definitely see why you idolize David Campbell as much now. Oh my God, he was tearing through that place.
He's amazing. He got the fastest time in stage 1, and we'll get to it later, but, you know, he got the fastest time another part. And yeah, Brent Stephenson was really, really impressive this episode.
And Brian Orozco too. Honestly, they're yelling Mr. USA at him, and the only thing he did that was a little odd was he went under the cargo net. Did you think that was such an odd thing to do?
No, it was pretty common. Various competitors take different approaches, either going above it or below it. I think what matters in that decision is where you land on the slanted cargo net. If you're a little bit lower on the cargo net, it's probably easier to go underneath, but it's a little bit riskier at the same time because you have to hold your stomach up not to hit the water. But going above it takes a little bit more time, and then you can roll over. So I think over time, most people garner the approach of climbing upwards because it's safer, but in the earlier seasons, you see both strategies.
You know what was funny is Shane Daniels ended up timing out, and he timed out the year before too. Did you notice he was holding that signed T-shirt at the beginning of his run as the clock started going? I wonder how much time he lost standing there holding that shirt, or if it didn't start until he actually made that first jump.
No, he lost about 3 seconds, but it was only 3 seconds. I don't think he timed. I think he timed out way before 3 seconds, right?
I don't know. He was like hitting the top of that climb. Like if 3 seconds might have been enough.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, guys. It's not like American Ninja Warrior where the time starts when you hit that first obstacle. Once that buzzer sounds, you better get going.
Yeah, it didn't look like a good idea to be standing there showing off the T-shirt he had. So anything that stood out for you? Anything you forgot?
On the first stage, not really. I mean, we hit most of the beats. I just like to say again that the 3 huge standouts to me were Brent Stephenson, David Campbell, and Brian Orozco. The other competitors were really good. They were just, very consistent, but the 3 people that really just stood out from the pack are those 3, and they're very good.
All right, so let's move on to stage 2. I did notice one thing here, and maybe I just haven't. I feel like I would have noticed this, that they were using the term achieving total victory, which I'm obviously familiar with now, but I've always equated that with Sasuke because I feel like they don't really use that terminology anymore in ANW, do they?
I guess not anymore, because now they say, like, well, I don't know. I mean, they refer to Isaac Caldera as the first American Ninja Warrior. Then they started referring to Jeff Britton as the first American Ninja Warrior. But when they talk about achieving total victory, now they say, like, the first to climb stage 4 or whatever it's called, right? Mount Midoriyama. I can't remember if they used total victory terminology or that rhetoric enough in the last 2 seasons.
I don't feel like they do. Like, maybe I'm wrong, but I seriously don't. I didn't even know what you were referring to. I think I've heard you saying it before anybody else.
I'm sure
recording this podcast, and I didn't even know what that meant at first. So it's odd that they just kind of dropped that off. There's a few things that changed, obviously, along the way.
Well, I think when they transitioned to a very strictly American version of Sasuke in season 4, I think a lot of things switched over, and the terminology might have gone wayside with it. You know, in season 4, they really tried to stay true to Sasuke with copying a lot of the way Sasuke is done, but at the same time, they had to kind of carve out their own version of it. And I think some of the terminology was just... It could be something as simple as Matt Eisman and I wonder if Akbar was there at the time, but whoever was the co-host with Matt Eisman, maybe they just didn't use that terminology. It could have been something simple as that.
Yeah, it might have just fallen off over time, too. Maybe it was there in season 4 and just didn't remember it. But, yeah. One thing that dropped off over time, so I guess I can say this now. It'll be a little bit ahead of the other podcast, but actually we recorded with the Final Stage podcast the other day, and we looked at the very first Sasuke. So we'll give you more information on that next week after the episode's released. But one thing that I keep wishing we had on A&W was the numbering system. I love that. I think that's such a neat thing where it has, you know, this, it means something, what number you have, and you kind of automatically know what order people went in based on that number, and it's just way more interesting to me, and it seems like they've lost something by getting rid of that.
Yeah, I mean, they can always have the numbering system in the qualifying rounds and relate it later to the finals. I mean, that's one of those things where I'm kind of indifferent about it. I see both sides. So, yeah, I mean, that's something they could do.
Total diversion there. Okay, let's go back to stage 2. We had 5.
Sorry, I'm like, whatever about the numbering system.
I just think it adds a lot of character to it, but
it does.
Yeah, these 5 people that are left at this point. So, in the first round, we lost Adam LaPlante, Patrick Cusick, Adam Truesdell, and Travis Furlonic, and Shane Daniels. So that left us with the names that are a little more familiar to us. Actually, for a lot of these, we have
Travis Furlonic made it to stage 2.
Oh,
didn't
he? Yes, he did.
Okay, I'm like, what? Pretty sure.
Okay, let's try this again.
Are you thinking about stage 3 or something?
No, I just don't have it noted out in this way, so it's hard to read through this list where I've got all these little notes about where they fell and different things. So it was actually... So moving on, let's try this. Moving on to stage 2, we have Paul Casimir, Brent Stephenson, Travis Furlonic, David Campbell, and Brian Orozco. There we go. Those are the 5 guys.
Cool. Half the field.
Yes. They noted there was no new obstacles, at least from the previous year. So there was the slider drop, which I really liked, and a bunch of things we should be used to from... I want to talk about the slider drop for a second. So it's like the pipe slider, but it's huge, and there's this massive drop at the end of this thing down to a pad.
Looked a little dangerous, right? Because this dismount, you kind of just like let go of this thing, and then you fall a really far distance onto this pad and just land. And some of these guys were rotating pretty far, where if they were to rotate just a little bit more, they could land like straight on their neck. I kind of got a little nervous seeing that.
Okay. So yeah, exactly. I think it was Brent that came down so fast that it looked like he could have landed on his head the way he was going.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if I remember, I don't remember seeing this particular version of it too much, so maybe the producers, the Sasuke, kind of got a hint like, hey, this is kind of excessively dangerous. Yeah, I don't know, man. I was getting a little nervous.
So there was a weird mixed bag here where we had, Paul Casimir just narrowly making it through, And then we had freaking David Campbell and Brent having over 20 seconds left on the clock when they get through. Such a big gap between them, but actually the fact that 4 out of the 5 of them made it through is pretty impressive.
Oh, it was really impressive. I think the thing that stands out is that when it comes to Stage 2, and this really isn't a knock on anybody, it's just Stage 2, all the obstacles in this really just were made for Team America and a lot of these competitors. I mean, these competitors, their body types and what they excel at, they were kind of built just for Stage 2. So I guess it played to their strengths.
I guess I was really surprised at how few of them got tripped up by the metal spin, which we have seen before, and I always thought was such a ridiculous obstacle that required too much luck. But
I am not a fan of that obstacle.
But all 4 of them that reached it did it with seemingly no problem. I wonder if there was some difference in the way it rotated or in the length of the chains or something, because
I think it has a lot to do with the length of these guys' legs. I mean, the jump to this particular chain is what usually trips up a lot of the competitors, because they have to. A lot of the Japanese competitors are, on the shorter end. They have to jump a massive gap and then grab onto a much lower on the spinning chain thing and try to grab a grip, and usually they slip out. These competitors were able to jump really far, be higher up on the chain, and easily grab onto it. So I think that played a huge part, is just the jumping distance that the American competitors were capable of doing.
Okay, and then you think they probably scaled it up for the American one so that they had to do a much larger gap and caused them to get messed up.
I'd imagine so.
All right, that makes sense. I loved during this run, though, for Brian Orozco, like we said about the commentators, I found them hilarious. And they said, there's some meat on those bones. Will it hold him back? Like, Brian Orozco, was not big or chubby in any way, shape, or form, but that was enough to, just that little bit extra was enough to make him stand out, I guess.
Could you imagine Matt Rush or Grant McCartney on Sasuke and what they'd say about them? They'd be like, these guys are giants.
Oh, God. So, yeah, Stage 2 was pretty good. Nothing too notable, except that Travis Verlanek fell on the balance tank, which was the only obstacle that tripped him up in boot camp, too. So that was a little odd. Not an obstacle that's generally seen as terribly difficult from what they're saying.
Taller competitors are always going to be much weaker when it comes to balance. And just because when you're shorter, you have a lower center of gravity, so you have more control over yourself. So I think that's always going to be much like his detriment. And yeah, I mean, it's something he should have just trained more on. And maybe he has. I don't know. But it definitely reprised itself again in this certain situation.
Yeah, and sorry, balance tank is something that looks like it's been around for a long time, but it isn't. We don't see it on modern ANW. It's basically, imagine rolling down a hill on a barrel. We see people doing it for their training a lot, but we don't actually see it on the course. So,
I don't consider that. I think too many people would find it too easy. It's definitely a transition obstacle, right? But I think there are much more difficult or flashier transition obstacles available. So I'm kind of glad we don't see it.
All right, so with
it's just a log, man. Do you like it? I mean, how do you feel about it? It's just a log, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, it does. It's not terribly exciting. It does seem like a skill that they should have, and maybe throwing in a little test of it here and there might not be a bad idea. It took out Travis Verlanek, so it's definitely an obstacle.
Do a slackline or something. Something way worse.
Yeah, I don't know. So many of them train on slacklines. You never see them actually on the course.
You know what, though? We had something, way phenomenally worse than this during the qualifiers, and I forget what part of it in the season, but it was one that tripped up, all of the women in the field. Do you remember what I'm talking about? Where it was, all these bouncing things there. Oh, gosh. It was different rolling, mini rolling logs, all in different angles and heights and everything, and you had to jump from one to the next.
Okay, the something stairs,
Those things were brutal, man.
Yeah.
You want to talk about, they should have that on Stage 2. Can you imagine?
Oh, what is that again?
Yeah, I forget its name.
Moving on, we had Stage 3. So with 4 of them left, the big killer was the ultimate cliffhanger, which, because nobody had ever completed it, I thought that was really interesting to think of it being seen as such an insurmountable obstacle not even that long ago.
Oh man, I remember watching this, and I always thought the ultimate cliffhanger was so unfair that nobody would ever be able to complete it. Like, it was just too hard. I was like, this is impossible. Nobody's ever going to do it. It's just, fun watching back at it, and considering where we're at now with the crazy cliffhangers that they have in Sasuke nowadays. But yeah, the ultimate cliffhanger was an incredibly, incredibly daunting obstacle back then. It was just perceived as so difficult. And I'm glad they gave it the respect it deserves.
Yeah, it actually did take out two of the competitors. It took out Brent and David, who both went the furthest. But
how amazing is it that Brent failed like very quickly in the cliffhanger, and yet Brent was the first person to ever complete the cliffhanger in American Ninja Warrior history.
Yeah,
That's some cool stuff, right?
It was very cool watching it because of knowing that, that in the future he would be the his iconic obstacle. Really, when you think of Brent, you automatically think of the ultimate cliffhanger.
Yeah,
but I feel like, well, maybe not so much David, but really the killer obstacle was the very first one. That roulette cylinder seemed to do them all in.
Yeah, I think the roulette cylinder paired with the doorknob hang, because I don't know, man. There are many obstacles out there where the obstacles look as difficult as maybe they are, but the doorknob grasper, or the doorknob hang, I think it's doorknob grasper.
Yeah.
That obstacle is so much harder than it looks. Like, there are people that can do it and they make it look way too easy. That is so ungodly hard to do. And I think when you pair both of these obstacles up, where the cylinder hang drains all of your arms, but also your grip strength really hardcore, right? Because it slides out. But then you transition right onto that doorknob grasper where it doesn't spin. So you really have to lock your arms like fully at an angle, like an L angled, and just hold on for your dear life. Those are going to drain everything out of your grip. And you mix that with everything else later on, I mean, the competitors probably had nothing left, but I really liked that pairing that they had.
Yeah, something like the cliffhanger into the vertical limit like we had in Sasuke this year.
Oh, geez, yeah. It's crazy how difficult Sasuke is. When you look at Stage 3 and Sasuke nowadays, it's like, that's ridiculous, but it's awesome at the same time. I'm not complaining. It's just ridiculous. But yeah, man, I liked the pairing.
Yeah, I thought the course was good. I would have liked to see more of it, but unfortunately we didn't get to see the whole thing. And Brian Orozco, who was the favorite going into this, ended up falling on the first obstacle of Stage 3. Go figure.
Yeah, that was pretty shocking, actually.
Yeah. I like when he's talking to Allison afterwards, because she asked him the big question, do you think there's ever going to be an American that achieves total victory? And he said, I think we'll see one in the near future, which was, 5 years before it actually happened. And it wasn't in Japan, which he probably had no idea that was coming.
Okay. I was pretty shocked. I'm like, what do you mean? I was like, there has not been an American that has completed Sasuke yet. But I understand now.
Yeah. Yeah, we're still waiting for that one. Drew, maybe next year.
I think next year we are going to see a lot of competitors. Well, do you want to discuss that now, or do you want to wait till next week in terms of discussing, the different time frames that might happen for Sasuke?
It's up to you. Do you have? I don't know what you're even referring to, so we can do it now or later.
Oh, okay. Let me pull it up. I want to get this right very quick. A lot of this information was presented on Reddit from Arsenet from the Final Stage podcast, who's much more expert when it comes to Sasuke and everything going on with the Japanese version of American Ninja Warrior, or Japanese version of Ninja Warrior, sorry. Yeah, so first of all, Sasuke 33 is confirmed, so woo to that, but I think we all knew that was happening. But a more interesting thing is that for the past few years, Sasuke's only happened once a year. Now, before that, for a long time, it was twice a year. And it seems as though they might be going back to the twice a year format now that they're getting, they have a contract with, the Esquire Network and a bunch of other affiliates around the world that the station and the show is getting more money in the Japanese version of it. So it seems as though they're going back to a 2-year presentation of that. And the reasoning for that is because the auditions are going to be January 6th. Not sometime in the spring or summer, how it's been traditionally the past few years, when, they have it once a year. So it looks like they're going back to the format where they have one earlier in the year and then sometime later on in the year. And I'm really high up on that for two reasons. The first reason is because we're going to have much more opportunity to see some of our favorite competitors from Japan on the, doing it, full term throughout the years. But the second part is that means that there won't be too much crossover in terms of filming when it comes to the scheduling of Sasuke and American Ninja Warrior, which will present us much more with a much better chance of seeing Jeff Britton, Jesse Graff, Drew Dreschel, and all of our favorite competitors, David Campbell, all of our favorite American competitors on Sasuke.
Yeah, that was my first thing I thought of too. Is that we know of at least one major scheduling conflict this year, so it would be nice to see that not be an issue going forward.
Yeah. Not just that, I mean, now that they have an Esquire deal, you have to imagine that Esquire will be quickly, or at least, relatively quickly speaking, converting the Sasuke airing to a Ninja Warrior, quote unquote, equivalent of it for their airing with the subtitles and everything like that. So overall, it's a win-win for everybody. So I'm really high up on that, man.
Awesome. So the last topic we had for today was the Team Ninja Warrior College Madness showdown between the University of Connecticut and MIT.
Woo! Dude, we got to talk about this. So these two teams are so incredibly jacked. Like, I am so looking forward to this particular episode when they compete against each other because, oh my God, I love these two teams.
Yeah, you look at their accolades, it's absolutely phenomenal. So UConn is Luke Adams, Perry Madison, and Jade Sharkany, maybe? Sharkany?
Sharkany.
So we've got a World Free Running and Parkour Federation sponsored athlete, a high school athlete who broke his school's pole vaulting record his senior year, and a parkour instructor at USA Ninja Challenge. And then a power lifter, the girl in this is the power lifter, rock climber. In high school, pole vaulter, varsity volleyball, track and field, pole vault, shot put, discus, sprints, and field hockey. And this team has like a few different videos to watch. You can see their submission videos and a nice news segment, which we'll be linking, which, Bijan, thank you for finding all that. So is this your favorite of the two?
It's really hard, man. This is a tough one. I'm going to choose this team, but I can really see MIT beating them also. Both teams are so incredibly, good all around. Now, the one thing in terms of analyzing this team is the two male athletes on the team, Luke Adams and Perry.
Yeah.
Sorry, his auditioning thing is Philip Perry Madison. And I'm like, what? Perry Madison. So both these guys, you can very much see they're very comfortable doing obstacles. They're very comfortable doing free running. They are very agile. Now, the big question mark on this team is going to be Jade Sharkany, just because when you look at her accolades, she's done it's ridiculous, the line of sports and the talents that she has. But the one thing to be concerned about when it comes to this, and I'm not saying this is an absolute, but it's just a question mark that I have, is how agile she'll be. When we look at her, she's got a history of free running, pole vaulting, varsity volleyball, track and field. Well, track and field is the big one, right? That might change that. But when it comes to hockey, everything else, it lends itself to somebody that's very strong, somebody that uses their power more than perhaps their agility. Now, looking back at it, she does have a history of track and field, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the track and field that we're all thinking of, like sprinting, doing the 400 or something like that. I'm very curious to see how agile she is, because that will play a huge part in it. But if they play her right and they put her on particular obstacles that really lend themselves to her power and her strength, they can go all the way. I think the big question mark is going to be where they put her with these obstacles.
Yeah, it's a very interesting team for sure, and I love their videos. I thought they were great. MIT we didn't have as much about, but they're... Before
we get into MIT very quick, though,
sure.
I really want to give a huge shout out and suggest everybody goes to see Philip Perry Madison's college edition American Ninja Warrior audition. This video might be one of my favorite videos I've seen. It is so good. His story is great. His personality is great. And his comfort in front of the camera is just so good. Really go out of your way to see this video, guys. I really, really like this competitor. And I think he's got a huge shot at being on American Ninja Warrior with his presence in front of the camera. He is so entertaining. And once again, his story is amazing. So I really like this guy.
It's funny you say that because I was on the verge of saying that, and I thought, I don't want to single out one person on the team. It's about the team. But yeah, Perry...
I'm fine. I'll do it.
Perry really did stand out. I loved his video. I thought he had a lot of personality. Like you said, totally agree with everything you just said. Perry's is definitely the video to watch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sorry to cut you off. Go ahead into MIT.
No, it's cool. MIT, who I was a little surprised, they're not really as known for their athletics, I guess, as their academics, but we've got Amelia Becker, Thomas Cabrera, and Charlie Andrews. That is an avid rock climber, ultimate frisbee competitor, which seems to be on almost every team, an ultimate frisbee person for some reason. And then we have a serious rock climber who competes in monthly obstacle course racing competitions. And then the U.S. national team for speed climbing and sport climbing. So a lot of climbers on this particular one, but we do have some obstacle course racing mentioned as well. So it seems like a pretty serious team as well.
Yeah, they seem very, I don't know, they're very agile, but a lot of their... I question how well they're going to do on obstacles because they seem incredibly athletic, but that doesn't just say that they're just going to plow through some of these obstacles. I mean, what if there's a balance obstacle that they've just never trained for or something like that? They're a big question mark, but in terms of their athletic prowess, they are very, very strong. As you said, like kind of shocking for MIT, but shout out to them, man. And I find it interesting that their descriptions, they aren't world-class rock climber or anything like that. It's a avid rock climber and a serious rock climber. I don't know what the hell that means.
Yeah.
Like they do it every once in a while. Like, what does that mean? But at least it says something to the grip strength, right? So they do have some sensibilities in terms of rock climbing. Ultimate frisbee competitor that, from what I understand, in the college level, that's actually a very, very serious sport. So good on him. I'm going to be rooting for Thomas Cabrera as an obstacle course racer. Shout out to him. He's got to rep hard. If he's the only one, he's got to rep hard, man. I expect a lot from you, Thomas. Charlie Andrews, yeah, she's on the U.S. national team for speed climbing and sport climbing. Now that's a very big standout. That's something that you definitely perks my ears up. And if anything, when it comes down to the one-offs, I can definitely see her standing out against her competition, and I think it's all going to go down to that. I think the format's going to play a huge part because if I remember correctly, if you just get one person past the initial round, you have a chance in the end. So I think it's going to go all come down to how they present the format of this competition.
I'm going to go ahead and assume that Charlie is actually a guy and Amelia is the girl on that team.
Oh my God, what's wrong with me? Yeah, sorry,
but
no, you're right. I'm pretty sure that's true. The formatting that I have for this list, guys, is a hot mess. Where most of the girls are the third one, but for some reason Charlie is the third one on this team.
Yeah, I don't know why. Because you're right. It almost is always the girl is third, but in this case she's first. So unless there's a dude named Amelia, it is possible.
That'd be interesting.
Okay, so that is it for this week. Coming up in the next few weeks, we actually have a big interview that we're lining up, so we'll hope to announce more of that next week. But in the meantime, if you'd like to reach out to us, you can reach us at ninjapodcast.com. You can email me at rich@ninjapodcast.com, or you can get me on @ninjapodcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Bijan, how can they reach out to you?
Hit me up at Twitter and Instagram at Bijan151. That is Bijan 151.
All right. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you have a great week.
Peace, y'all.